Good morning, students. Welcome back to our history class. Today we are continue the chapter 9, the making of the national movement 1870 to 1947. Now let us learn about the march to Dandi. Purna Swaraj would never come on its own. It had to be fought for. In 1930, Gandhiji declared that he would lead a march to break the salt law. Okay, we know that. Then, according to this law, the state had a monopoly on the manufacture and sale of salt. Mahatma Gandhi, along with other nationalists, reasoned that it was sinful to or crime to tax salt since it is such an essential item of our food. Salt is an essential item of our food. Okay. The salt march related the general desire of freedom to a specific grievance or specific complaint shared by everybody, and thus did not divide the rich and the poor. Gandhiji and his followers marched for over 240 miles from Sabarmati Ashram to where? To Dandi, okay, where they broke the government law by gathering natural salt found on the seashore and boiling seawater to produce salt. Okay, that means then according to this law, salt law, the state had a monopoly on the manufacture and sale of salt. Okay, when the British imposed the tax on salt, Gandhiji and his followers marched from Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad to Dandi. For what? To break the salt law. Okay. Then the British were shocked at the number of people who joined Gandhiji. Understand? Then the Dandi March was an important in India's freedom struggle. Mahatma Gandhi breaking the salt law by picking up a lump of natural salt. Okay, please look at picture. Then Mahatma Gandhi picking up a lump of natural salt. Okay. At that time, the government tried to crush the movement through brutal action against peaceful satyagrahis. So, thousands were sent to jail. The combined struggles of the Indian people bore fruit when the Government of India Act of 1935 prescribed provincial autonomy and the government announced the elections to the provincial legislatures in 1937. The Congress formed governments in 7 out of 11 provinces. Okay. Provincial autonomy means capacity of the provinces to make relatively independent decisions while remaining within a federation. That is right of self-government. Okay. That means provincial autonomy was introduced in the Government of India Act of 1935. The Act itself made a clear-cut division of powers between the central and the provinces. Okay. That then the Congress formed governments in 7 out of 11 provinces. The Government of India Act was a major step towards the independence of India and helped in the organization of the states. Okay, Britishers have introduced this act. In September 1939, after 2 years of Congress rule in the provinces, the Second World War broke out. Critical of Hitler, Congress leaders were ready to support the British war effort, but in return, they wanted that India be granted independence after the war. The British refused to concede the demand. The Congress ministries resigned in protest. That means, after the India Act of 1935, the Second World War broke out in 1939 to 1945. Understand? So, at that time, Hitler was a German politician. He was a leader of the Nazi party in the Second World War. Okay. So, Congress leaders were ready to support the British war effort. Okay. But in return, they wanted that India be granted independence after the war. Okay. The Congress ministries resigned in protest. Okay. Quit India and later, Mahatma Gandhi decided to initiate a new phase of movement against the British in the middle of the Second World War. The British must quit India immediately. Okay. Gandhiji said to the people, do or die. Okay. Please note that, do or die. Okay. in your effort to fight the British, but you must fight non-violently. Understand? Gandhiji and other leaders were jailed at once, but the movement spread. Okay, it especially attracted peasants and the youth who gave up their studies to join it. Communications and symbols of state authority were attacked all over the country. In many areas, the people set up their own governments. The first response of the British was severe repression. By the end of 1943, over 90,000 people were arrested. Okay, and around 1,000 killed in police firing. Okay, in many areas, in order were given to machine gun crowds from airplanes. The rebellion, however, ultimately brought the Raj to its knees. Okay, that means in 1942, people were restless and demanded freedom under Gandhiji's leadership. Okay, then please look at picture. Demonstrators clashed with the police everywhere. Many thousands were arrested, over 1,000 killed. Many more were injured in Quit India movement. Okay, so the British immediately arrested Gandhiji and other leaders. Okay. Meanwhile, Subhash Chandra Bose was elected the president of the Indian National Congress. Okay, a radical nationalist with socialist leanings, Bose did not share Gandhiji's ideal of ahimsa, though he respected him as the father of the nation. Okay, in January 1941, he organized a struggle against the British from outside India. Okay, in 1943, he organized the Azad Hind Fauj, Indian National Army. Okay, for what? To liberate India. Okay, so to free India from British control in 1944, the INA tried to enter India through Imphal and Kohima, but the campaign failed. The INA members were imprisoned and tried. People across the country from all walks of life participated in the movement against the INA trials. Okay, towards independence and partition. In 1940, the Muslim League had moved a resolution demanding independent states for Muslims in the northwestern and eastern areas of the country. Okay, the resolution did not mention partition or Pakistan. Why did the League ask for an autonomous arrangement for the Muslims of the subcontinent? Okay, from the late 1930s, the League began viewing the Muslims as a separate nation from the Hindus. Okay, in developing this nation, it may have been influenced by the history of tension between some Hindu and Muslim groups in the 1920s and 1930s. Okay, listen, look at the picture. Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad with other members at the Congress Working Committee, Sevagram, 1942. Okay, listen. Then Rajagopalachari speaking to Gandhiji before the Gandhi Jinnah talks, 1944. Okay, listen. Rajagopalachari was popularly known as Rajaji. He served as a member of the interim government of 1946 and as Free India's first Indian Governor General. Let's see picture. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel played an important role in the negotiations for independence during 1945-47. Okay, listen. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel played an important role in the negotiation or discussion for what? Independence during 1945 and 47. Okay, he was a foremost organizer of the freedom movement from 1918 onwards. Patel served as president of the Congress in 1931. Okay, let's see. Muhammad Ali Jinnah with Mahatma Gandhi, Bombay, September 1944. Okay, they played an important role in the making of the Lucknow Pact. He organized the Muslim League after 1934 and became the major spokesperson for the demand for Pakistan. The provincial elections of 1937 seemed to have convinced the League that Muslims were a minority and they would always have to play second victor or play in any democratic structure. Okay, it feared that Muslims may even go unrepresented. Okay, the Congress's rejection of the League's desire to form a joint Congress League government in the United Provinces in 1937 also annoyed the League. The Congresses failed to mobilize the Muslim masses in the 1930s, allowed the League to widen its social support. Okay. It sought to enlarge its support in the early 1940 when most Congress leaders were in jail. At the end of the war in 1945, okay, the British opened negotiations or discussions between the Congress. British opened discussions between the Congress, the League and themselves for the independence of India. The talks failed. Why? Because the League saw itself as the sole spokesperson of India's Muslims. The Congress could not accept this claim since a large number of Muslims still supported it. Understand? That means at the end of the Second World War in 1945, okay, then British opened a discussion between the Congress and the League. For what? Then for the independence of India. Understand? Elections to the provinces were again held in 1946. The Congress did well in the general constituencies. General constituency means election districts with no reservations for any religious or other community. Okay, but the League's success in the seats reserved for Muslims was spectacular or striking. Okay, it persisted with its demand for Pakistan. In March 1946, the British cabinet sent a 3-member mission to Delhi, okay, to examine this demand and to suggest a suitable political framework for a free India. This mission suggested that India should remain united and constitute itself as a loose confederation with some autonomy for Muslim majority areas. Okay. But it could not get the Congress and the Muslim League to agree to specific details for the proposal. Partition now became more or less inevitable. Let's see. Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi before the Bombay session of the Congress, July 1946. Okay, Gandhiji's discipline, a Congress socialist and an internationalist, Nehru was a leading architect of the national movement and of free India's economy and polity. Okay, let's see. In the northwest frontier provinces, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan with his colleagues at a peace march through Bihar in 1947. Okay, he was strongly opposed to the partition of India. Okay, he criticized his Congress colleagues for agreeing to the 1947 division. After the failure of the cabinet mission, the Muslim League decided on mass agitation for winning its Pakistan demand. It announced 16 August 1946 as Direct Action Day. Okay, please note that 16 August 1946, what was announced? Then Direct Action Day. Okay. On this day, riots broke out in Calcutta. On this day, violence broke out in Calcutta, lasting several days and resulting in the death of thousands of people. Okay. By March 1947, violence spread to different parts of northern India. Okay. Many 100,000 people were killed and enormous women had to face untold brutalities during the partition. Okay. Millions of people were forced to flee their homes, torn asunder from their homelands. They were reduced to being refugees in alien lands. Please note that partition also meant that India changed. Many of its cities changed and new country, Pakistan, was born. Okay. So, the joy of our country's independence from British rule, okay, came mixed with the pain and violence of partition. Okay, that means by the end of the Second World War in 1945, the British realized that they could no longer stay in India because the Indians were determined to expel the British. Okay, a major problem that had emerged because of the British policy of divide and rule was the demand for Pakistan by Muslims. Understand? All these developments ultimately led to the partition of India and the creation of Pakistan. Finally, on 15 August 1947, India gained freedom. Okay, at that time, Jawaharlal Nehru was the first Prime Minister of independent India. Okay, you remember that. So, chapter completed. You must read the lesson carefully.